I don't have no reading glasses. Could somebody find me some glasses? I'm going to be talking from Genesis 6. I have to look at God. From Genesis 16. I ain't ashamed. She don't get a little mature. Genesis 16, and we're going to start at verse 1 and read through. Well, we're just going to read. Y'all read with me. And I'm going to read from the NIV version. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her." And Abram agreed to what Sarai had said. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. So he slept with Hagar, and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abram, "You are responsible for the wrong I'm suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and I." "Your slave is in your hands," Abram said. "Do with her whatever you think is best." Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. And the angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road shore. And he said, "Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." The angel added, "I will increase your descendants so much they will be too numerous to count." Then the angel of the Lord said to her, You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall call him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him. He will live in hostility toward all of his brothers. She gave this name to the Lord, who spoke to her, El Roi. You are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. And today I just want to talk for a minute about and yet. And yet. So it occurred to me that most of us, all of us, are born with a need to be seen. When babies are little babies, one of the first games that we play with little babies is peekaboo. Peekaboo, I see you. And babies laugh and they giggle. But really, babies think, my mama sees me. And then as kids get a little older, they become toddlers and they come, pat you on the leg. They don't really want anything, because usually they pat you on the leg and run off doing something else. Y'all ever seen, I don't even watch that show, the little show with Stewie. I don't even know what that show is. Mama, 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 mama. That's what kids do. Get on your nerves. But really, they're just trying to say, Mama, do you see me? I'm here. Do you see me? And then they become teenagers, and they don't pat you on the leg anymore. Now they're, getting all in your face and talking back, and maybe that's not, see, I don't have no perfect house. My bad. Y'all thought I had a perfect house? No, we don't have no perfect house. But really it's, Mom, do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you hear what I'm going through? And then we become adults. And we start having affairs because our wives or husbands don't see us anymore. Or we go to work and we take credit for something that somebody else did because we feel like our boss doesn't see us anymore. See, this goes for everybody. Y'all thought it was just for the little kids. Everybody has a need to be seen. And when we're not seen, then we struggle with feeling isolated.
Yes.
We struggle with loneliness because we don't feel seen. See, I can lay next to somebody. I don't. Now, let me say that. I don't lay next to nobody except my pillows. Because y'all, the first thing y'all do is praying up there fornicating. No, I'm alone in the bed. Keep it together.
Yeah.
But we can be married and lay up next to somebody every night and still not feel seen. and still feel isolated and still feel lonely. And sometimes that isolation comes from circumstances that are beyond our control. So in this situation, when you look at all three in this story, each of them was experienced their own form of isolation.
Yeah.
So Abraham was isolated because he had no children. And back then, a man was respected, especially the more kids that he had, because there was children to carry on his bloodline.
Yes.
Abraham had no children. So that caused its own form of isolation.
Yeah.
Sarai had no children. And so back then, a woman was less than a woman because she was barren. She couldn't relate to a lot of the people in her household because she didn't have any kids. So she goes to the market. Everybody else talking about their kids. She don't talk about her kids. My sister is so funny because every time we go somewhere, she says, well, they got grandkids. I don't have no grandkids. We laugh, we joke, we cut up. But when everybody your age has grandkids and you don't have no grandkids, what do you tell when everybody else is talking about their grandkids? Well, my daughter has friends that has kids. That's not quite the same thing. And Hagar was a slave, which automatically isolated her.
Yeah.
Because what she thought and wanted and needed, nobody cared. That wasn't even her job. Her job was as a slave.
Yeah.
Her feelings did not matter. How many times do our feelings, we feel like they don't matter, and that automatically causes us isolation? Well, they don't care how I feel, so why am I going to say anything? Nobody cares what I think. I'm in a situation right now where I'm at work, and I don't say anything. Because the devil has said they don't really care what you think. No, that's not true, but that's what the devil has told me. So I keep my mouth shut. And when I keep my mouth shut, then I go in my office and I shut the door, and guess what? I'm isolated. And nobody is immune from isolation. Even kings or leaders feel isolated. How many times do we hear about a pastor that has committed suicide? You don't think somewhere along the line they felt isolated? They felt like nobody understood where they were or what they were going through or what they thought or what they felt? You think depression is not its own form of isolation? I've been there. I've been there where I was laying in the bed by myself and didn't want to be here anymore. And I felt like I was alone in a house full of people. See, we can feel isolated and somebody sitting right next to us. That's not new and exciting. And every one of us, I bet if I sat down and talked to each one of us at some point in life, we have felt isolated. And so sometimes those circumstances are beyond our control. But sometimes, this is all, you know, I love this story. This is actually one of my favorite stories in the Bible. But it wasn't until recently I realized sometimes our own actions cause us to feel isolated. So in each of these people, they did something to cause them to feel even the more isolated. So Hagar, she got pregnant, and all of a sudden she's all that in a bag of chips. Oh, girl, you can't have no kids. Look at me, I can have kids. She must have forgot who she was. She was the slave. That was her job to do what she was told. Let me step on my own toes. How many times I go to work and think I know more than the boss?
Come on.
I know how to do this. You don't know how to do this. Don't tell me I'm not all that in a bag of chips. In my mind, I'm like, if I left, y'all be so messed up right about now.
Come on, Frank.
See, I'm just going to talk about me. Y'all thought I was all perfect and holy. No, I need help. I need Jesus every day. Multiple times a day. So Hagar gets beside herself. She forgets who she is. And Sarah wasn't saved either, because all of a sudden she started mistreating Hagar because Hagar's mistreating her. Two wrongs don't make no right, but they sure feel good. I don't care what y'all say. Sometimes it feels real good to do somebody wrong that's done you wrong. I know I'm supposed to be holy. Help me, Lord. I'm a work in progress. But let somebody do me wrong. I ain't been saved that long. For real. Like I saw a shirt that said, I'm saved, but you can still catch these hands. Sometimes that's how I feel. So Sarai said, hey, I know what God said, but you can still catch these hands. So she creates her own isolation. And Abram, he's not without fault either. Now come on, Abram. You're supposed to be the man. You're supposed to be the leader. What does Abram say? Well, She's your slave. You handle it. Really? That's what we gonna do, Abram? Abram said, hey, I ain't getting in the middle of y'all. We got this situationship going on. Y'all didn't know, them young folks, y'all know what that means, situationship. That means it's not really a relationship, but it's kind of like just a situation. Yeah, so we got this situationship. Y'all do y'all. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let you handle it. Y'all think that don't happen? Let two of your friends get into it. Oh, hey, wait. Both of y'all handle it between yourselves. No! Sometimes we have to intervene, but Abraham said, no, y'all handle it. So, in all of these situations, everybody ends up isolated. Everybody ends up on their own. We do the same thing today. But instead of running to the wilderness, we run to our own wilderness. So we run to sex, or we run to alcohol, or we run to drugs, or we run to working. How many of y'all know working is its own bondage sometimes? If I stay at work, I don't have to go home and deal with what's at home. We overeat. I love food, obviously. I love food. Don't let me get upset about something. I hate people that say, oh, I can't eat, I was too upset. Please, somebody tell me how that happens. Tell me, because I have yet to figure that out. When I get upset, I'm going to the kitchen. Like there's a path already laid up for me. We shop. When I was in college, I had a very, very bad habit of just buying things. Just buying, just to be buying. If it was a new party, it was a party, I had to have a new outfit for that party. If I was going to work, I needed a new outfit to go to work. If I was going to class, I needed a new outfit to go to class. I know it don't make no logical sense, but my dad had just died. And instead of dealing with what was going on the inside, it was just easier to run to store to store to store to store and to party to party to party to party instead of really dealing with what was on the inside. So see, it's easy for us to judge somebody that's fornicating, having sex. It's easy to judge a drug addict, but when's the last time you went to the mall and you bought something you didn't have no business buying? Not only could you not afford it, you didn't even need it. Even if you could afford it. We got clothes hanging in the closet with tags on them that have been there 2 years. No one good and well you don't need those clothes. So it's easy to criticize those sins that are so overt, so outright, but we all have them. We all have things that we run to. We all have our own wilderness. So the story is what I like to call a series of very unfortunate decisions, very unfortunate choices. And each person in this story took matters into their own hands. And here's the thing, we talk about the grace of God and the mercy of God.
I see you.
But this is one story that each of them really had to live with the consequences of their decisions.
Yes.
It's easy to say, oh, well, God's mercy will cover me. And it does. I've had things in my life that I have done that I deserved so many bad things. Probably should have been in prison. I ain't ashamed to say I tried to run somebody over with a car. I know it was a long time ago. I've been delivered from some things. He and I are friends now. That's what's so awesome. That's how awesome God is. He and I can talk now. We can be best friends. But I've done some things. I've done some real bad things. And I'm here today to tell you I ain't been to prison. I always sound a little too pretty to go to prison. So I haven't had to pay that price. But some things that I've done, I've had to suffer the consequences for. See, so here's the thing with God. The Bible says no one knows the mind of God. So you don't know when it's going to be that time that grace kicks in and he says, okay, I'm going to let you make it. Or that time that you try to hit somebody with a car and he said, take your behind to prison. You don't know which time it's going to be, so why test grace? That's one test I don't want to take.
Thank you. Yeah. Hallelujah.
So they suffer the consequences, and Hagar decides, I've had enough. I had enough of you people. I notice that it never says Hagar acknowledges what she did to create the issue. She just says, hey, I had enough because you treated me bad. Well, you treated me bad first.
Yeah.
But isn't that what we do? We run away from our own stuff. We try to run away from our own stuff. See, it's so easy to blame everybody else.
Yes.
So easy to say, it's your fault that I'm in this situation. Hagar had just as much to contribute as everybody else did. So she runs away. She tries to escape. And here's where we find God. Because no matter how far you run, you can never hide from God.
Yes.
No matter how far you go or how many wilderness that you decide to be in, you really can't ever hide from God. So God shows up and Hagar says, you are El Roi. It's the only time in the Bible that El Roi is ever mentioned. But Hagar says, you've seen me. Before she can say that, God says, where have you come from? And where are you going?
Yeah.
That got me.
Yeah.
Where have you come from? And where are you going?
Yeah.
And Hagar could only answer the first part.
Yeah.
I came from being mistreated by my mistress. But I'm sure in Hagar's mind she's thinking, I don't know where I'm going. I just thought this was a good idea. But it was a rhetorical question because God already knew where she was going.
Yeah.
And you know where she was going? Back. She was going back.
Yes. Amen.
See, Hagar says, you are the God who sees me. So she knew at that point, God had already seen where she came from.
Yes.
But I believe that she knew God had seen where she came from.
Yes.
In her heart. See, physically, she was where she was. And God knew that she was coming from Abram's house. But it was bigger than that. So the definition of to see is to perceive with the eyes, to discern or deduce mentally, after reflection or from information, to understand.
Yeah.
So Hagar knew God understood.
Yeah.
It wasn't about seeing her in the physical.
Right.
Hagar knew that God saw who she was. He saw the hurt. He saw the pain. He saw the fear that she had experienced.
Yes.
And there's something about being seen.
Yes.
There's something about when somebody loves us enough to see us.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about seeing what's on the outside. See, people tell me all the time, friend, you're so beautiful. But the people that love me, that call me and say, God, show me something about you.
Yeah.
Those are the people.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that touch my life. This whole message came because yesterday I got a text message. As I'm sitting praying saying, God, I got nothing to preach about.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who text messaged and said, what's wrong? Out of the blue. Completely out of the blue.
Yeah.
And I said, God, thank you for seeing me.
Yeah.
Thank you for seeing me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Hagar had an encounter with God, and God saw her.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, God didn't stop at her. Because back at Abram's house, God was seeing Sarai and Abram.
Yes.
And he was seeing their lack. And he was seeing their heartbreak. And he was remembering the promise that he had made to each of them.
Yeah.
So in the midst of our wilderness, in spite of us, God still sees us.
Yeah.
No. But when God saw Hagar, Hagar saw God.
Yeah.
When we see God, God changes our perspective.
Yes.
When we know we are seen by God, it changes the situation. It gives us hope that we didn't have before. Hagar went into the wilderness hopeless, and she came out full of hope. She said, I don't really know where I'm going. You know where I'm going. But I trust that if I go there, then you're going to give me what I need to get there. And God made her a promise. He said, go on back because I have a blessing for you. I have something for you.
Yeah.
So what's the and yet? They messed up. And yet, God still kept his promise.
Yes.
I hear old school preachers all the time say, you can't preach if you ain't living right. You can't sing if you ain't living right. And
Yeah.
We have all lived some very poor choices.
Yes.
We have all ended up in situations that were beyond our control. But Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plans that I have for you.
Yeah.
Plans to prosper you and give you hope in the future. So it's really not about everything that we've done and sometimes everything that we're going to do. God sent her right back to bless her in the midst of the mess that she had left. Sometimes we don't want to go backwards because we think that there's nothing there for us. But and yet God still blessed her.
Yeah.
He blessed her. If God tells you to go back somewhere, go back.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
I'm a living testimony of and yet. And I bet if I were to give each one of y'all a microphone, it may not have been attempted murder or drugs or alcohol or sex or shopping. But I bet if I hand you the microphone, you could say, and yet, friend, God still.
Yeah.
And that is the kind of God that He is. And so we need to stop letting circumstances and people and situations keep us from doing what God has called us to do. Because here's the thing, you don't have enough power to change God's plan. None of us are that powerful. If God has a plan for your life, it will manifest. Now, you may delay it a little while.
Yeah.
You may derail a little while. You may detour a little while. But I promise you, He's going to send you right back for the and yet.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of God He is. So if you are here today and you need an and yet in your life, I invite you to this altar.